It's funny that you bring that up, Rob.
Oh,
so
is it?
Yes, in fact, this is actually kind of an exclusive, I guess, because I'm working on or finishing up my first feature length film, The Great Kentucky Goblin Spree, but now I have a release date for it.
Nice.
Yeah, the release date right now that we are going to use is going to be.
Welcome to another episode of Chewing the Fat. I'm your host, Big Rob. Thank you so much for tuning in. I certainly do appreciate it. Thanks for the folks who have bought me a coffee, like Cal. Thank you so much for the coffee. Also, all of the kind words and likes and follows and shares of the show. I really do appreciate that. I'm excited about my guest for today. I've known him for a while. He is a Maverick filmmaker, and he saw a need in this town for a film festival, and man, he has created an amazing one. Please welcome Duane Brown to the house.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Rob?
Great, man. Great. I'm so excited about the Black Cat Picture Show, which is going to be happening in about a week.
Yep.
The 20th through 22nd here in Augusta. Mm-hmm. I've been involved since we're going into the seventh annual.
Yep.
And I think I've been involved since the second or third.
I think it was the second.
Second or third. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's amazing to see how that film festival has grown.
It really has.
Over the years. And some really exciting stuff happening this year as far as the festival is concerned. But before we get into that, for the folks that don't know the amazing Duane Brown like I do,
thank you,
you Maverick filmmaker.
Thank you, Rob.
Give the folks some background. How long have you been making films? How long have you been writing, directing, acting? Where did that passion for arts start inside you? I
think I've always was always a writer. I wrote a lot, especially when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. It wasn't good, of course, but I mean, I think this is it's the crap that I did that actually made me kind of open up and maybe just put some real pen to paper, as it were, and not actually, like I said, write things that I thought people or mimic. Because I read a lot of things back in the day, like Stephen King and the sort Peter Straub, and of course I wasn't like that good, but I think the older I got and the more I got into high school and the more I just kept writing, the better I think I got at it. And as far as acting is concerned, that's something that I did when I was younger. I think I did some Augusta Players, and then from then on, some schools stuff, high school things. Mm-hmm. I think that it really became full circle when I wanted to make a film, and I noticed that there was nobody in town making films. I mean, especially here in Augusta, you think that, one of the things I thought when I was a kid that, I always wanted to be an actor. And I thought, what, I'm just so good that somebody's just going to come to Augusta and grab me and put me in a film. Right.
Right.
So, but then it started dawning on me that I'm going to have to make this happen if I wanted to do so. And at the time I was working, I was working at Wolf Camera at the time, back in the day when there was an actual camera store in town. And Stephen Gilliam, Stephen, we were working together, and we just came up with the idea, let's just do it. Let's make a movie. We had no idea what we were doing. So we used to borrow equipment from the store. Okay. And to shoot stuff with. And a friend of mine had this Canon XL1 camera. Back in the day, those things were like $5,000 or $6,000, but they were still standard definition cameras because they didn't have anything like 1080p and stuff back then. Right. Or cameras that shot 24 frames a second like film. So, but we still used that, still didn't know what we were doing, and weren't even using all the camera could do. And then after we get finished shooting this film, it's called The Drive is Getting Scared. He ends up, because Steven didn't really know what he was doing as far as editing was concerned. I mean, he was actually using Windows Movie Maker, and he wasn't. Nice. And when he exported it out, it looked like crap. But the great part about it was that it was accepted to the 2004 New Orleans Film Festival.
Oh wow!
That was kind of a big thing around here because, again, people around here weren't making film festivals because no one was making movies. Yeah. I think there was one person making, any type of films about the same time I was, and that was Tim Johnson. Okay. But it became a catalyst. I think, I had a showing over at the Metro Coffee House. And that's where we premiered the film. And it was a big hit with everybody that was there. And again, it went on to win the Audience Choice Award at the Southern Fried Flicks Festival. So it kind of became a catalyst that people was like, hey, I can do this. I can make a film. And it also was a testament to the fact that as long as you had a good story, people can forgive a lot. They can watch a film and they can say, well, the acting was all right. The production, kind of what it was. But you know what? The story was actually, good. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of people can forgive a lot for that. So from there, now you see films popping up everywhere, and we have film organizations here in town. We have people that are, like Steven and Dan, they have Wages of Sin. And now we have Black Cat Picture Show. So, Augusta's actually become like this small little film mecca. Yeah. And I'm not saying I'm the only one responsible for that. I mean, there's other people that are actually, creating great content, but, it was definitely a start to it.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing is there was like I said, there was a kind of a vacuum where none of that was happening. I mean, there's lots of places when people live in small towns, and I've had that same thought. It's like, oh, if I do this thing, then someone will see me and I'll get discovered or whatever. The majority of the time, you've got to go somewhere where the work is. You've got to go somewhere that you can perform where there's at least a likelihood of someone stopping by and seeing whatever it is you're doing. So there was a black hole here where people weren't creating that type of stuff. And maybe it was because of there was no support. There was no community support. Mm-hmm. There was no venues that were willing to show that type of stuff. But I know I made, small TV shows with a little VHS camera and and just slam editing on a VCR and stuff like that, Well,
a lot of people back then, and honestly, what digital could actually offer people in this town, it wasn't recognized then. A lot of people didn't understand because, you went to a film, you were shot in 35 millimeter. That's what a movie was to you. So, I mean, now the possibilities are limitless. There's people now shooting films and winning awards on their iPhone. Yeah, so, I mean,
absolutely.
So, I mean, again, I just think that the opportunity wasn't recognized back then. And then once, someone grabbed a hold of it, I mean, and ran with it, the others saw it, they did it as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's when that tribe starts to show itself too. It's like, oh, well, they're doing it. Let me do it too. Let me connect with that person that I saw that did it. I think that's why the stuff that, Dan and Steven do with Wages of Sin, they're so giving of their talents and times and space, and they're a massive facility with all of their props and and being prop makers and all of the stuff that they're willing to say, hey, sure, we'll help you do that because we have a passion for that.
And they're passionate. Yes, I was going to say the exact same thing. We have a passion for it.
It's
huge.
Yeah, and I think that's something, like I said, that wasn't here. And now, like with Black Cat Picture Show, there's a venue where your film can be seen and judged. Right. And I think the judging part is what really, really stands the Black Cat Picture Show, head and shoulders above any other film festivals that are around. There are festivals that are out there that will, if you pay your entry fee, they're going to show you the film.
Right.
That I call that a screener festival.
Basically, yeah.
And whereas the Black Cat Picture Show, there is a judging panel of roughly around a dozen folks, from all walks of life that watch every movie that gets submitted, and they go by a rubric, and if it passes the line, it makes it into the festival. And I think as a filmmaker and as someone that you've put films in festivals, I feel like that's something that helps to challenge you to make better films.
Yeah. I agree with that completely. And I also, one of the things about the rubric system is, as long as you're being honest with it, you may not like the film, but at the same time, you should rate it, if it asks you about sound or acting or, pacing, you should be honest with it whenever you're rating it. But one of the good things about it as well is that the top tier films really stand out at that point. When you start getting several hundred films submitted to your festival, you don't have that many hours in the day to squeeze that much content in. So being able to judge these films honestly and accurately, no matter where you come from, whether you be from Augusta, whether you be from Los Angeles, Paris, no matter the case, you're being judged on the same standard.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think that, one of the things that we do best, and forgive me for saying, because I know there has been some, we have heard sometimes that there's a little bit of an annoyance that we don't just show local films or have a local category. And it's not because we don't appreciate local films. We appreciate them very much. The thing is that we want to create an international premiere film festival. And if something from Augusta, which we have shown a film, I think two films, I believe, that were from Augusta.
Two or three from Augusta. Yeah.
So, if the content is there and the quality is there and the story and the acting and everything all lines up, then of course it's going to be in the festival. But, and like I explained to people before, just because I'm from Augusta doesn't mean I get to play the Masters, right? So,
right.
I think that we're just making sure that we're keeping an even playing field, creating the premiere experience for film goers in our town, and actually opening up to a culture that I think has been untapped here as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that it allows us to show films that they would never see anywhere else.
Yeah, because like I was saying, it helps the filmmaker to make a better film, but also the film goer, the person that comes to the festival, is going to see films that are of a higher caliber than they would have seen otherwise.
Yep, absolutely.
Speaking of high caliber films, we had a great opportunity that was presented to us this year. Am I correct?
We are definitely correct. You are definitely correct. We were approached by the A24 production company, which, if you're familiar with A24, they've done, almost every film they touch is spectacular. So you have Hereditary, Midsummer, The Lighthouse, The Witch. Just phenomenal films. And they reached out to us about showing a film called Minari. Mm-hmm. Which, don't get me wrong, like I said, had this been a year ago or so, that'd have been great. But the film has actually been around for a bit. It's actually hit the circuits. It's I think it's actually even, you can watch it on Prime now or something to that effect. And that wasn't really something we were interested in doing. So, chatting around on the boards and everything over on our private Facebook page, we just started discussing The Green Knight, because we knew The Green Knight was coming out. So, so I just kind of, hit the ball back to them and said, hey, is there a possibility for us to be able to show The Green Knight? And there was some back and forth. They were still trying to figure out whether or not they were going to be dropping it here in Augusta, which, they did, but I don't even know if it's still available in the theaters now. It was there for like maybe a week or so. That normally happens with A24 films. But they were really receptive to the idea. And I think we really created a really good partnership with it. They were very reasonable about about the screening conditions. And once we nailed down the particulars of that, we got the green light to go ahead and show it at the festival. So it'll be actually headlining opening night of the film festival.
You said we got the Green Knight to show it?
The Green Knight.
Not the green light.
I'm sorry. We
got the green light on the Green Knight.
That's right. We got the green light to show the Green Knight.
And so that is opening night on August the 20th. Exciting. There is a short block of entries that are before that, correct?
There's a short block of shorts, and then there's also again, after the Green Knight, we'll be having our artist reception, which the really cool thing about that one is that a lot of times we have filmmakers that come in from out of town. We've had some come as far away as Tokyo. Yeah. And you can talk to them and tell them, ask them what their inspiration was. It's an opportunity that a lot of people don't get to get. They normally don't really get to communicate with people who do things like this of this type of creative stature. So it's really, it's a good mixed bag of people to to network and talk.
Actually, absolutely. I remember one of the cool things from I think it was either last year or the year before. I think it was year 5. One of the coolest things about in talking to some of the people there at the festival on opening night, because prior to this point, we're building this festival, slowly getting more entries, slowly getting more word out, slowly getting more recognition for the festival. And usually the people that we see there are associated with one of the films that are screening over the weekend. And it's a 3-day festival, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So usually we'll see people that are associated with the films, or they're people from in town. They're local folks, which that's all good and fine. I remember talking to somebody and asked them, I was like, oh, where are you from? And they're like, oh, we came down from New York. I was like, oh, that's great. Which film are you associated with? Because that's just the question I would ask. They're like, oh, none. We just came for the festival. And I'm like, that's it.
I know, right? We hit the big time.
We've made it, because that, to me, that shows that the work we've been putting in has really paid off.
It has.
To have somebody that showed up for the festival because they heard of the quality of films that we show, because they heard of the care that's given to the filmmakers and the audience as well. We have lots of great Q&A sessions in between with the filmmakers if they are there before their films or after their films are shown. And it's a really, really cool weekend of cinema right here in Augusta.
Yeah, the really good thing that what you're speaking to right there is that every year it has gotten bigger. And I think I remember it wasn't last year. I think it was the year before that where we showed an American Werewolf in London. Yeah, so on the Saturday night block when we always show our horror and thriller stuff. And I'm just realizing when I'm talking about, I'm dealing with Universal Pictures right now. I'm getting an American Werewolf in London to show and screen that night, and that was really a big thing. So, the A24 thing, I was giddy because I'm a fan, and I think you are as well.
Yeah,
I think we all are. I mean, we're all film buffs, so we really are. And it just seems to get bigger and bigger, again, every year. And the content is getting better and better every year, because I think before, when we first started out the first year, I think we probably got like maybe, 60 submissions. So, you figure about maybe half of that you're going to show. Some maybe, teetering on the precipice of that line where the rubric gets cut off. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It's like, how can we actually make 3 days out of the films that cross the line?
Right. But, and this year we, Chris and I were actually discussing a possibility of starting Thursday night instead of Friday night because of all the great films that we had. And, and eventually it may turn into that. We could turn it into a week-long thing like, other bigger festivals, which I'm hoping it does.
Yeah.
I think that was always the goal, was to be able to show a film, because most film festivals, the big ones, they show a new film normally on opening night. A lot of films are actually showcased that way. And I was like, I want to get big enough to where we can do that. That's how I think you've arrived, when you actually are able to show that type of film. So yeah, that was the thing. And I'm hoping next year we'll get even something, just as big, or if not bigger.
You mentioned Chris, who's the executive director of Le Chat Noir, which is the home theater for the Black Cat Picture Show.
Yep.
And that's something we've talked about before, is that, we screen everything right there at Le Chat, and he has, there's extra spaces, and we talked about how nice it would be if we get to that point where we can say, okay, we're going to do dual blocks. We're going to, be able to show, documentaries on, for a block going on the same time that, some shorts are going, or whatever, to give people another option to be able to experience more of these films during the festival. And I think the potential for that growth, there's no limit to what we can do. It just takes support. From the community. The community support really, really means a lot to this, because yes, we're talking about an international film festival here. Well, that's the entrance, and we don't want people to feel like they can't be a part of it. You absolutely can. You can you can submit your films. You can also just come and support and see the films too.
Yeah, and we had and to be fair, we had a couple of local films that were very close to making it this year. So, I mean, we definitely welcome the local film community. Again, they're just treated the same way as anybody else. Right. So, and I think that the need in this town was a huge one. I think that the only time you ever got to see any foreign films, normally the college was putting them on somewhere, and you can actually go watch it there or whatever. But I mean, I think that now actually having a venue, knowing yearly you can expect to see this type of content is important.
Absolutely. So are you personally working on any films?
Yeah, it's funny that you bring that up, Rob.
Oh,
so
is it?
Yes. In fact, this is actually kind of an exclusive, I guess, because I'm working on or finishing up my first feature-length film, The Great Kentucky Goblin Spree, but now I have a release date for it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, can you share?
I can. That's why I said exclusive.
I don't want to curse anything.
Well, it's not going to be like next week or anything, okay. But I mean, but the thing is, COVID slowed a lot of things down, and I really wanted to make sure that when we showed this film, it had a proper premiere, because there were people who donated to a Kickstarter campaign that deserved that. Yeah. So we're going to still do that. We're cleaning up a lot of stuff in post-production right now. And I say we, Steven, right.
Wages
right.
of Sin, yeah.
Who has gotten, of course, he's grown by leaps and bounds from his drivers getting scared days. And, but anyway, cleaning up a lot of that. We have one pickup shoot we need to do. Okay. Kind of saw a snafu with that as far as that's concerned. I'm going back to the script. I was like, oh my God, we didn't even shoot that. But the release date right now that we are going to use is going to be Friday the 13th of May, 2022.
All right. You heard it. Friday the 13th of May, 2022.
2022. And it was so funny because this weekend I was like, I need to update the trailer and put that date on there. So your listeners are getting it before it even hits the social media.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. There you go. That's your exclusive.
I'll save that for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. Got the scoop. So in doing you, and you talk about, things that you missed and stuff like that, what that filmmaking process, do you have a favorite part of it? I mean, I know you wrote that script, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's an adaptation of a tale.
Of an actual, like, supposedly real life event.
Right. Yeah. But what during the process? What is the writing your favorite? Is it the filmmaking? Is it the editing? Is it? What's that favorite?
I'll tell you what's not my favorite, and Dan will actually be the one to sit there and say is like he doesn't like the storyboard. And the thing is because it's just oh my god, it's so time consuming because I see the shots in my head, but they oh my god, they just insist on storyboards and I get it. But the thing is, I think my favorite part of it is creating it, I would imagine. Yeah. I like the filming process a lot as well, too. So, yeah, I would probably say the filming and the creating. The post-production process is a little bit different because then when you actually start seeing what you created, you're like, oh, man, is this any good? I mean, because I remember with the drivers getting scared, I saw the editing so much and so much and so much. And I was like, this isn't even funny anymore. And I kept looking at Steve and I was like, is this funny anymore? Is it joking me? He goes, I don't even know anymore. Right. And so
you kind of get tone deaf to your own product.
Correct. Because, it's like, oh my God, this is so lame. But then, I think I actually read that about Martin Scorsese. He said that, the first time he sits down to watch one of his first initial, cuts, it makes him completely nauseous and he has to actually leave the room because he can't stand to watch it.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, I think that, it's never going to be what you put on the page. As in your head, yes, you got this vision in your head, and it may be for the best. Somebody might actually come along and do something that was like, oh man, this is way better than because for your listeners who may not even know this, Rob is also in the Great Kentucky Goblin Spree, and the part that he plays was way better than I wrote it. So I'm going to be honest with you. I'm giving you a little, I'm blowing a little smoke for you, but I'm telling you that that was amazing. And we had to actually, if you remember, we had to cut the cameras because we were all dying laughing. And I don't even think that was a usable take because we were laughing so hard.
Yeah, I do remember that. And it was funny because I think that was, we had, in passing seen each other at Lachat for plays or things like that. But I don't think we had actually worked together in an art form, and we hadn't worked together in retail yet either. So it was kind of in passing, and I don't know how my name ended up in front of your eyes and all this other stuff. And you're like, oh, we got this one, blah blah blah.
I can't remember. It might have been Chris. It could have been. It could have been very well. It could have been Chris. And I just remember you trying to fit in that policeman uniform for the first time.
I still have that police uniform in one of these closets.
Yeah, well, Val can thank me for it later.
Yeah. it still don't fit. It's like a rope tie and the belt.
I don't think it never fit. I know, but that was funny.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, and I remember personally being so nervous because I had gone through, and I mean, I had my sides. I'd reading over. All right, what this. Trying to memorize it. I mean, it was like two sentences. Really, it was not a lot, but I was just so nervous.
But it was the delivery, Rob. I mean, that was like the best. And like I said, I mean, everybody just died. I'm gonna go through.
See if that's still.
Well, no, it's still there. So I'll cut that for you and give it to you, so you can just that first reaction was hilarious.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I remember Brandon Bruni spitting in my face pretty much because he just laughing at me. I was like, okay,
everybody was laughing. Yeah, it was great. That's when I knew that, honestly, that's one of those moments where it was better than what I wrote. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a lot of fun. So in the process, filmmaking, the creation part, do you have any horror stories from any of your previous films or plays or any of the other stuff that you've done that just really just stand out to you? I mean, I know you've been in plays where you've hung upside down for like a good half hour.
That was probably that was Lieutenant of Inishmore, and it was hanging upside down is not as easy as it actually looks. So when we first did it, Chris had me try it out, from a doorway. He had it hanging up. I probably did it for about a minute, and I was like, all right, you got to take me down. Like blood rushing to my head. I'm feeling woozy. I'm going to pass out. But what's so funny is that, I lost a lot of weight by actually, just, I don't know. I don't know if I was eating better or working out. I can't remember. It was so long ago. But the thing is, it got to the point to where I could do it no issue. And so I had this harness that they would put on me. And there was this device that you use just where I would actually have to tie myself up and I would hang myself upside down. I was actually hiding in the curtains behind whoever was running the board, the sound and lights and stuff. The terrible part about working with Chris is that he knew I had gotten too, used to it and too accustomed to it. So while I'm hanging upside down, and by the way, this scene went on for a good like 12 to 15 minutes at this point. So, you know, he would he'd be pushing me around and stuff while I'm hanging upside down, and spinning me in circles and like raising me even higher off the ground. And I'm like, oh my God, if I fall, I'm dead. I'm going to break my neck. I'm done. But he would think that was just amazing. And then, you know, but you know, he always puts me through some like really, you know, screwed up situations, like, you know, Full Monty.
Oh yeah.
You know, where, you know, I think that I'm probably one of 6 people, and that's the people who were actually in that play, who's actually been on that stage, you know, butt naked. So
butt naked.
Yep. And
aside from Paul Jones, I know he's been butt naked on that stage.
Yeah.
Too.
So I mean, what was that for a play?
Yeah. Cast party.
Yeah. But yeah. And as far as filmmaking is concerned, I would say probably I think it's always horrifying to see the finished product when it's not completely done. Only because it's, you know, you see it out without music, you see it out without effects, maybe if you have effects in it. And then you start to worry, because you're like, did I waste everybody's time? Did I waste, you know, my time? Did I waste money? What have I done here? But it only, you know, I did one film that just turned out to be terrible. And this was probably after the drive was getting scared, because at that time I was buying into my own hype, and I thought, like, you know, I can't do anything wrong. I'm golden, right? Because I've
been at a festival.
Right, I've been at a festival. And, you know, you know, I'm not even going to speak about it, but I will say that it just did not turn out the way that we intended. You know, at that point, it was just a lot of drinking and partying and slapping myself on the back. And I was like, you know, at this point I knew from going forward, everything has to be, deliberate. Yeah. You know, I mean, that's the thing. It has to be deliberate. You have to take it seriously, or you're going to wind up in that situation again.
Yeah. You have that New Orleans Film Festival entry under your belt. Yep. That exception. Did you win any awards there for it?
Not in New Orleans. Nothing in there. But, you know, at one point we tried a local film festival here called Southern Fried Flicks. You know, I think that's when, you know, the Imperial was involved, and Chris was also part of that as well. And we were all doing that as well. And I won the Audience Choice Award at that festival. That festival kind of petered out after a bit, because it fell victim to almost the same thing that the other places, or the other, I think what you called a screening.
Yeah, screening festival.
Yeah, you know, it just pretty much showing like whatever local films are. You know, they said Southeast, but mainly all of them came from here.
Yeah.
But since then, you know, when we were doing the stuff for Artifactum, stuff like that, I made the film Beacon.
Yeah. Great film. That is a great film, by the way.
You know, I'm proud of that one. I really am. I was going through a pretty dark time, you know, in my life. You know, I just split from my wife. I missed my son, you know, and it was, I was in my grandparents' house, and my grandfather had just died. My grandfather was like my father. And so, I mean, the house was still like boxed up. There was like, because, you know, at the time we were going to, you know, get rid of the house, but I ultimately ended up buying it. And, it was just a really dark period in my life. However, I think that it came together really, really well. And I'm actually proud of creating that type of content with that type of mindset. And that ended up going to several, well, I didn't say several. I actually went to a good bit of festivals. I mean, we went, it was at the Cardiff Film Festival in Wales. It was accepted to a film festival in Portland, Oregon. It also was accepted to a film festival in Kansas City, where it won the Audience Choice Award.
Nice.
So that one did really, really well. I'm really proud of that. Really proud of that film. And you know, since then I've just been doing a good bit of writing, and theater is what I've been really focusing on a lot. But of course, now since when the pandemic started, I've just been basically just writing, or whenever I get a chance, you know, between work and being a dad. But I'm getting back on the saddle now, and especially now that things are starting to get hopefully a little bit better, you know, people can start doing what they're supposed to be doing. We can start making films again.
Yeah,
you know?
That'll be exciting.
Yeah.
You talked about your son and raising your son, Atticus.
Yep.
One of the proudest moments I ever had, as far as a creator, was an interview that I did with you, talking about Addie. I mean, it's probably been 3-4 years since we shot that, but it is still one of the proudest pieces of work that I've ever put together.
It was great.
Just in that story that you told about Addie. Do you want to go into that?
Yeah, you know, Addie, you know, he has autism. He was diagnosed with autism probably when he was around 3. I mean, you kind of start seeing that he's not like other kids. You know, he doesn't behave like other kids. He doesn't play with other kids. and when we found out he had autism, I mean, I'll admit that was a hard, pill to swallow. I mean, only because, I waited. I was 38 when we had Addie. I didn't have any children. I got so caught up in the things that I thought that he wouldn't be able to do, instead of thinking about the things that he can do that other children his age can't. Right. Now he's almost 8 years old. He's great artist, for his age. He has the most beautiful singing voice. Like, he sings on pitch, I mean, he's not completely verbal yet. I mean, he there's things that he'll say, and there's things that sound completely crystal clear when he says them. But a lot of times there's things that he's repeating that he's seen on one of his movies. Mm-hmm. Loves watching movie credits because that's where his songs are on. You know what I'm saying? But one of his favorite movie is a Wes Anderson film, which is Fantastic Mr. Fox. So I'm doing something right. Yeah. And he loves Isle of Dogs as well. So, but he's everything to me. I didn't have a dad growing up, so and then one of the things my brother always told me that because he had children way before I did, that you're probably going to hate my biological father, who I thought was my biological father at the time. That you're probably going to hate that guy once you have your Atticus, because how could you ever go for your kid? Right. I mean, it's just they're just they're just defenseless little creatures, right. And Addie is just, to me, I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it. It's one of those things where, you think that, am I going to learn to love this kid, when they're born and stuff like that. But once that kid comes out, it's instant. You would devour civilizations for this kid. You would, 100%. You would just destroy, anything, for this child that's sitting in front of you. So, I mean, it's, it's the best thing I've ever done, as far as creating anything. I'll never create anything as good as that kid.
All right, this is the section of the show where I'd like to dive a little bit deeper. We talked about some deep subjects in the previous segment there, but this segment, as someone personally who I do deal with depression, some things call it anxiety or tension and things like that. And I think everybody has those days. They have those sad days. They have those down days where everything's not sunshines and roses and rainbows. And we've all have to learn. How are we going to deal with that stuff? And I think one of the things about depression is that everybody does go through it, and no one is alone. But that's the thing; it wants to tell you that you're alone. Oh yeah. So for you, how do you stay positive? How do you keep the dark at bay?
I'm lucky. I'm lucky because I've since remarried, and I'm married to my best friend. And she's amazing. And not to sound like an echo chamber, but my son, he's hilarious first and foremost. He just is. And, I do tend because, we have joint custody. I have him 50% of the time, but that 50% that I don't have him, I miss him a great deal. So I do feel a little bit down when that happens. But, again, being married to Cheryl, she's, hilarious, beautiful, just, and she's very nurturing, and, she's somebody who gets me, and she knows that I have those dark times, and, she understands that I have to be, on medicine and make sure that my medicine is in the cabinet, where it needs to be. It was a rough time. I think it was around, 2003 where I started having panic attacks, and the very first panic attack I had lasted several hours, and I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know what was wrong with me at all. I thought something's wrong. And I wanted to go to the hospital. I didn't. I was able, after a couple of hours, I was able to actually, calm down a bit. But it was so traumatic that it happened again, I think, like the next day or the day after that. I can't remember what it was. And I did go to the emergency room. They, and of course they can't give you anything for it, but maybe like, a lorazepam or something to that effect, because at the time I didn't understand it was a panic attack, and I didn't understand what was going on, and I didn't know how to cope with it, because at the time I didn't know really anything about panic attacks, and there was really nobody to talk to. And if there were people having panic attacks, they weren't telling me about it. So I didn't really know who to talk to about it. So then it became a point to where I didn't even want to go outside. I became extremely agoraphobic. It was, the thought about even leaving the house made me just want to break down. I just couldn't, I couldn't leave the house. And that's when the depression, came in.
Right.
So I knew I had to do something. I had to get some help. I had to figure out something. So they, then they put you on one of the worst medicines that was ever created by mankind, called Paxil. And Paxil was just, that stuff was developed for people who actually have seen people get killed. I mean, that's not like, that's not really treatable for people, or something you should use to, people who are suffering with depression or even panic disorder. There's something that, there wasn't really a good resolution out there. So honestly, it took a bit, I dealt with the Paxil bit for whatever I could stand, but I had to stop taking it. And then because I just couldn't take it anymore. So I would go to work and I would just take my Game Boy with me, and I would just have to immerse myself in my Game Boy, because honestly, it didn't realize or dawn on me until like later on in life that, both sides of the brain can't be up at once. Right. If you do a lot of, thinking or, anything that can keep your mind occupied that requires you to either do any type of deduction or puzzle solving or anything of that nature, then, it keeps a lot of that at bay. But again, didn't realize it. I was just playing video games because it made me feel better. Right. And, it was, it wasn't until I took Lexapro that after several weeks, I was like, this is it. Saying this is what's working. And what's so crazy is that when I started having these panic attacks, 2004, was when I made my first short film. So I created that out of, and by the way, it was a comedy. So I wrote a comedy out of the depression that I was feeling at the time.
Right.
And, it got to a point to where I was great. And I was like, maybe this is maybe this was the fix that I needed. And like down the road, when, before Atticus was born, I actually stopped taking Lexapro because I had this thing in my mind where I just want to be off medication. Like, maybe now that I've got it under control and I've been to therapists and they taught me coping mechanisms and things of that nature that I can do this on my own. Well, that's not always the case. You may actually have a chemical imbalance that causes this, and there's no way to solve it except for taking medication. I mean, there's no shame in that.
Right.
Don't be brave just because you think that taking medication that means that there's something like wrong with you. Sometimes medication is out there for a reason, and a lot of times you need to take it. There could be something just chemically wrong with you, not wrong with you as a person, but there could be something causing that, as a chemical in your brain that requires you to take medication to alleviate that. And it's like I said, there is no shame in that. Do not try to be brave. Don't try to ride it out, because depression is not forgiving.
Yeah.
It doesn't care about your kids. It doesn't care about your relationships. It doesn't care about anything but feeding off you just feeling the way that you are. So, that's why, reach out for help. Just do it. Like I said, it's better than the alternative. And I think that, before Addie was born, I stopped taking it because, like I said, I wanted to get off of it. But then when he was born, I became depressed all over again, because now I didn't trust the world around him, because, I just, you see these things on the news about, people intentionally leaving their kids in the car while they go into work and they die in this, this hot car. And that made me, that one story, I think it happened over in Conyers or something like that. That sent me into a tailspin, because again, I always visualize everything in a way that I can understand. And I think about Addie being in this hot car, and it's just, I had to get back on it, because again, it was just, I was becoming depressed all over again, because now I brought this boy into this world where people just do crazy, crazy things.
Right.
So, when I understand now, if you get on medicine and you end up taking it the rest of your life, fine. If that's what makes you feel good, then there again, nothing wrong with it, because this isn't the kind of stuff you stop cold turkey. It's not. You just don't do that, especially when you've been taking it for as long as I have. But to be honest with you, I take a pill in the morning and I know for a fact I'm going to be fine all day.
Yeah.
And I think that, there is, I think it's very courageous to be able to take those steps to, rectify the situation. Laying down and let it take control of your life, that's no way to live. I'm not, again, judging anybody by how they cope. I'm just saying that medication does work. It does make you feel better. And I think, if you really talk to a lot of people nowadays, and, you're going to find out that somebody probably takes something for something. We all have our issues.
Right.
But I think that for me, I got lucky because I'm in a space in my life, and it took me 46 years to get here. I'm in a space in my life where I feel like, as far as my family is concerned, I feel complete. And it took a long time to get there. I had a really, really rough life, coming up, especially in my childhood. But I think that now everything's exactly where it needs to be. And now I can actually enjoy being creative again, only because of the fact I don't worry about, my mental, well-being anymore. I know that, I took the steps I needed to get right, So, yeah, I would say that if anything keeps me out of that dark space, with the exception of medication, it would probably be my family, only because of the fact that, they're the best.
All right, Duane, it's time now for the Fast Five.
Five.
Oh, I like that echo. That's nice. It's time for the Fast Five. It's powered by Poddex. It's a great app for podcasters. It's conversation starters, basically, by my friend.
How fast do I have to be?
How fast you have to be? No, I'll give you a moment to think about the answer to the question, but there are no wrong answers. That's the thing. There's no wrong answers. You just kind of give me that first answer that pops off of the top of your head, okay? But again, Fast Five created by Travis Brown. Thank you so much, Travis. If you'd like to get your own Poddex, you can use promo code CHEW, get 10% off. Isn't that cool? All right, let me hit this randomizer here.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. What was your first job?
I was 14 and lied and said I was 15 and got a job as a busboy at Pablo's Mexican restaurant.
Wow.
Making $3.80 an hour. I was a straight up baller.
Wow.
That job sucked so bad.
You're a busboy, right?
Yeah, I was a busboy, cleaning up people's leftover Mexican food, and no one around me. It was terrible. It was a bad job.
Wow. What prompted you to get a job at 14 to say you were 15 to get a job?
Well, it was fairly easy to lie about your age or anything at a Mexican restaurant. So I was able to get a job pretty easy. They didn't care. They weren't looking at anything.
Right.
They didn't ask me for a birth certificate or anything.
Right.
Yeah, they just needed somebody to clean tables, and that was me.
Okay. All right. Question number 2. What language would you like to master? Aside from English, obviously you need help with that.
I definitely need help with that. I took Japanese for a while.
Really?
I did. The only thing is that I think the woman that was teaching us Japanese, because she herself was Japanese, I don't think she really knew how to teach it. I think, because I can actually read hiragana, but I can't tell you what it means.
Oh, wow.
And I can actually, you can talk hiragana to me, or, even some katakana, and I can write it down. I have no idea what it means though.
Wow. That seems like that's a missing part there.
It's like the reverse, right? You would learn how to speak it
right
before writing it, but I've got the other way around and it makes no sense to me. But but mainly I would probably try to want to pick back up on the Japanese.
Very cool.
I think I got a leg up because of the fact that I know how to write it.
You can write it, but just I'd like to know what I just wrote.
Absolutely. All
right, number 3. What's invisible but you wish people could see? That's a deep question, right?
That is a deep question. That's a deep question. I think that a lot of people sometimes think that just because I think some people may think I'm unapproachable, but I think that I would like for people to see the kindness in my heart.
Oh, that's definitely invisible. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. I think that, honestly, sometimes, and not just necessarily for me, I think what is invisible, but I wish it wasn't sometimes, it maybe how people are feeling at a time. You don't know what a lot of people are dealing with, on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. I think that a lot of times being able to see somebody and know what they're going through, I think that'd be valuable.
Yeah. It's kind of like that, you never know the struggle that somebody's going through. So,
no idea. Yeah. You don't know what they're going to, and then they're right in front of you.
Yeah. That's a good one. All right, number 4. Have you ever booked a trip after getting inspired about the destination from a movie?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
What was that?
JFK inspired me. I went to, first off, JFK is my favorite movie.
Really?
Yes. By the way, if you've never seen JFK is a masterpiece, specifically visually speaking. They use a lot of different mediums, that film 35 millimeter 16, even closed circuit TV, everything that was back available in the 60s. So I got really caught up in the whole JFK assassination thing. And I think I remember my first year in college, I hold myself up in the library and I would read like every book about the assassination. So then I decided to take it even a step further. So I go to Dallas and I go to like the book depository and all that other kind of stuff. And then of course I go to New Orleans and I go to the spots where, a lot of the conspiracy started like taking shape and things like that. So, I mean, yeah, that definitely did that. I've probably been to Dallas like maybe 7 or 8 times, and you go up into that 6th floor, the book depository and everything, and you see all that kind of stuff, and you're like, yeah, that dude was never here.
He was never here. That is so cool.
But and standing behind the fence on the grassy knoll now is actually new. It's not the same old fence that was back then. Back then, when I actually went, it was still the same old fence, but it was missing planks. People would pull it off and take it with them. Yeah. I mean, this is like the 90s. But now it's basically got 24/7 surveillance, and they got a new fence put up and all that kind of good stuff. But it was still very fascinating to me, even to this day.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, and our final question here. Who are 5 famous people that you would like to have dinner with? They can either be dead or alive.
Okay, let's see. I would say probably one, probably not a very popular answer, but Thomas Jefferson won. Okay. I like Thomas Jefferson. I think he was a brilliant mind. Still kind of a jerk, but hey, okay. But I'm not going to judge the guy. I mean, it's not my place.
You're just having dinner.
Yeah, right. We're just having dinner. Bobby Jones.
Okay.
Dude was amazing. I mean, he was like the best golfer in the world, and he wasn't even playing for money, right? I mean, that was a side gig. He didn't even really care about it. He wasn't even serious about it. I mean, he was serious, but not enough to make money on it. 3 more folks that can come to dinner. Akira Kurosawa.
Oh, Kurosawa.
That'd be a good one too.
Yeah,
probably need a translator, but it would be a very good conversation.
If he wrote everything.
Well, that's true. But I think that would be a really great conversation. That guy was a brilliant filmmaker.
Yeah.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Okay. Yeah.
Come on, right? I mean.
Gangs of New York, one of my favorite films that he has ever done.
Yeah.
And but his commitment to character in every film is scary. It's scary for the other actors. It's scary for the directors, the production crew. I mean, it's just, talk about method acting and embodying everything. That guy.
What was it? I was reading something about with Daniel Day-Lewis about how, like just the links he goes through to like stay in character. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I can do some of that for a minute, but I can't like do that forever. I mean, I'm just not that disciplined, I guess. But there's a story where, he goes to the gym and he runs into Liam Neeson, and he's still like, in the character of this character in Gangs of New York. And Liam Neeson's like, oh, come on, man, just, you're at the gym.
Right.
I mean, but there are some people who take it that seriously, and good for them. That's all them. I would think other than Oscar Wilde.
Oscar Wilde, yeah,
that'd be a good one. That would be fun. In fact, to be honest with you, he'd probably take over the entire conversation. No one would even get like a word in edgewise. You know what I'm saying? Because he would just be talking about everything, and you know what? And everybody probably wouldn't mind. They'd probably be so enraptured just by listening to him talk.
Absolutely,
yeah, that'd be a great dinner party.
That would be an amazing dinner party.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that's it. That's your Fast Five, and that's the show, man.
Thank you very much for having me, Rob. I appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun, man. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Duane. If folks want to find you on social media, where can they find you at?
I do have an artist page. I need to update it. I haven't updated it a lot, but it's just Duane Brown. Duane, Duane Allman of the Allman Brothers. That's who I was named after.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, I do have an Instagram page for photography, which is the Brown Cow Imaging page. Again, don't update it enough. I need to do that as well. But also, you can head on over to the Great Kentucky Goblin Spree page, like that page, and you can also go and like our Black Cat Picture Show page as well. And don't forget, August 20th to the 22nd is going to be phenomenal. And by the way, just so you know, I talked to Chris this morning, and we're going to do the masks and everything again. So we do encourage you that if you are not vaccinated, have not been vaccinated, please wear a mask. And honestly, if you have been vaccinated, we're probably going to be doing that as well too, wearing masks.
Just makes it a little easier for everybody to kind of be on the same page.
We don't want to be part of the problem. That we're starting to get some spikes back up again and everything. So we just want to make sure that we have a safe festival, just like we did last year.
Absolutely. And tickets are still available. BlackCatPictureShow.com. Is it single day passes? I know some of the Friday night passes had sold out, but then I think there was a block that was released, but I'm not sure as of the release of this if they've been sold out too.
Right. So there's the weekend passes are getting to the point to where they're about to sell out as well, and also depending on how many chairs we start pulling for now, because we're really starting to consider the more social distancing. Okay. You really only have a very limited amount of time to buy tickets before they're gone.
So just check that out, blackcatpictureshow.com or at blackcatpictureshow on Instagram. There's links on there to get to the tickets and all that stuff like that. Again, Duane, thank you so much for being here. I certainly do appreciate you, buddy.
Thank you, bro.
If you would like to support this podcast, you can buy me a coffee at chewingthefatbr.com. We've also got links to all of our previous guests as well as Duane on there. And I look forward to seeing you next time we can sit a spell and chew the fat.